Hey there, thinkers! Welcome back to Critical Hit. My name is S, and in a world where magic, dragons, and a realm filled with lore would exist, the real focal point of a character's development should clearly be on their gender and sexuality, right? Like, heaven forbid we focus on things like personality, backstory, or, making them like an actual three-dimensional character. No, because apparently we just need to slap a label on them and call it a day. So now the Elder Scrolls Online narrative director is stepping in to address the controversy over the new non-binary companion. Because, just in case you didn't know, the entire character hinges on this one feature. So forget their skills, their purpose in the story, or any motivation they might have. Nope, instead just toss them in with a look diversity stamp and call it progress. And I mean, what a surprise, because the gamer swoops in, capes on, ready to defend the latest bold move in gaming like it's the final boss battle. Like, gamers have been rolling their eyes for ages at every possible injection of identity politics. But here we go again with the Elder Scrolls Online's update 44, because we've got the game's first non-binary companion, and the announcement's already being hailed as some sort of monumental leap forward in representation. Groundbreaking stuff, right? Because clearly, what the realm of Tamriel was missing was a lesson in modern identity politics, and predictably, a vocal chunk of the player base isn't exactly thrilled. They're venting, saying this character's inclusion is immersion breaking, because apparently dragons, the undead, and talking cat people don't stretch the imagination nearly as much as a non-binary NPC. They're claiming that these characters don't fit into the lore of Elder Scrolls, like it's been some bastion of strict medieval realism this whole time. However, I have a few things to say here, but before I do, we have a small request. If you are new here, consider hitting the subscribe button, smashing that like, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. We would greatly appreciate this, since this will help us appease those YouTube algorithm gods. So we thank you. Now let me give you our thoughts on this, and let's get into it. Because fantasy worlds are really just about showcasing the latest trendy demographic lineup, right? Because forget crafting characters that actually fit the world or enrich the story. Why bother with that? No, because the real magic happens when we make sure every single checkbox is ticked. Women? Check. People of color? Double check. And Latinx? Of course! It's like the whole character roster was picked out by a social media manager rather than someone who knows how to tell a story. And it doesn't even stop there with the characters either, because behind the scenes, it's the same thing. Make sure that the writers, designers, and the voice actors are all strategically hired to reflect the latest diversity metrics. Because obviously, hiring based on actual skill and passion for the project would be too radical. Let's skip the best qualified people for the ones that help hit those ideal representation numbers. Who cares if it affects the quality, right? Seriously though, because developers now need to see themselves in every character. It's like the whole point of storytelling and creating immersive worlds is now secondary to ticking off boxes for gender and sexuality representation. I mean, really, you're making a fantasy game, and instead of crafting compelling stories, you're worried about making sure every character reflects the latest modern day buzzwords. Throwing in terms like transgender or non-binary into a world that's supposed to be full of magic, dragons, and epic quests is just the best way to remind players that it's just a game. And of course, a character's gender or sexuality can be a part of who they are, but it's not everything. When that's all we hear about, when a character's identity is reduced to a label, they stop being characters and start becoming avatars of some agenda. Is it too much to ask for a character to have some depth, personality, and a compelling story without getting bogged down in real-world issues that don't belong in the fantasy? These modern-day checklists don't add layers to the story. They just yank players out of the world, making it feel more like a lecture than an adventure. So how about we focus on storytelling and character development first, and leave the modern day terminology at the door. So here we go again, another character who's supposedly compassionate, brave, and strong, but instead of letting those qualities shine through naturally, the game makes sure that you are consistently reminded that they are gay. Like it's the only thing that defines them. We get it. We really do. Every other line of dialogue is basically screaming, "I'm gay, pay attention to this." Also, "I'm kind, so you should care about me now." Like, it's like the character development got swapped out for a checklist. This isn't writing, this is virtue signaling in a form of dialogue. Like, modern writing has totally lost its way, and gamers are calling out developers for their hollow DEI initiatives and performative actions that take center stage in the game, overshadowing everything else. But instead of actually taking a good hard look at themselves, developers are quick to slap transphobic or terrible label on anyone who dares to speak up. Like, heaven forbid they ever consider that players might just want to criticize based on actual gameplay, story quality, or even character depth. They've gone from "let's tell a compelling story" to "let's make sure that the audience is consistently reminded of every label we can possibly attach on our characters." It's like they don't even care about the games anymore. It's just the agenda. Instead of respecting players' opinions, they just shut down any meaningful conversation with accusations, labeling anyone with a valid critique as some kind of villain. But nope, that would require some self-reflection, and that's apparently too much to ask for. So look, cramming DEI into every corner like it's the second coming. As if the game didn't already have a whole spectrum of queer characters to prove how inclusive they are. Now they're going even further. It's almost as if they're playing a game of how much can we add before the players finally revolt. Sure, Elder Scrolls has always touted itself as a series where players have a choice, but let's be real here. The gaming industry today is a far cry from what it used to be. This shift is so worrying, especially if we start thinking about Elder Scrolls 6. We have no idea where it's heading, but if the current trends are anything to go by, the developers might be more interested in pushing political agendas than actually crafting a meaningful, immersive experience. The industry is so flooded with people who seem more eager to preach than entertain, and honestly, that's a real problem. If Elder Scrolls 6 ends up being another mouthpiece for activists rather than a compelling game, we could be looking at a major disaster in the making here. And who really knows what's going to happen with Elder Scrolls Online? Sure, a small group of players might get all up in arms and try to boycott the game over whatever issue has them riled up at that moment, but realistically, it's unlikely to make a big impact. The player base for ESO might be small to some other big-name MMOs, but it's made up of a core group of loyal, die-hard fans who stuck with it through thick and thin. So, I mean, good luck convincing that crowd to just walk away. I mean, plus, let's not forget the countless other MMOs out there. Most people probably wouldn't even bat an eye and just keep playing like usual. And after all, there are so many other options out there. It's really hard for any one movement to sway a crowd in a big way. Because at the end of the day, most ESO players will likely just shrug it off and carry on exploring anyway. And as for Elder Scrolls 6, well, we've been sitting here for years, right? Like 7 years to be exact, since the trailer with the logo and the mountain. Yep, that's right, just a logo and a mountain. They've got the internet on pause with that. They've been doing that for so long. And I'm starting to think that they're just dragging it out for dramatic effect. But hold on to your panties, because after sinking billions of dollars into this thing, they can't keep playing the waiting game forever. They'll need to start pulling in some serious revenue, and fast, or they'll definitely be in some trouble. Because let's face it, if they don't announce something solid soon, we might just be looking at the final chapter for this franchise. And right now, it feels like they're betting on nostalgia and the hype to keep them afloat. But unfortunately, the cracks are starting to show, and the future of this franchise is looking pretty sketchy. So the narrative director, instead of owning up to the backlash about the non-binary companion, has decided to take the easy route by labeling anyone who disagrees as ists and phobes, because, you know, actually listening to the concerns of your audience is so overrated. I mean, like, no surprise there though, right? It's a classic move when you can't defend your creative choices on merit. So you just slap a few buzzwords around to shut down any criticism. But hey, let's see how the community reacts to that genius move. However, those are my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And hey, before you go, subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. As always, this is Est, and I'm signing off now. So I'll see you in the next one. Toodles!